Growing up, I wanted to be a bum that lived on the beach in Australia, but plans had to change. I was 16, flat broke, had a kid, so I had to figure something out.
Nobody would have thought that you'd be the one to start $1 million company and then move to Florida.
When I turned 18, I applied to the union only to get rejected. Long story short, I only got accepted because... What's up, Joel?
Jared, how's it going?
It's going good.
Good, man. Happy Friday.
Podcast Wednesday.
You know, you say that, but I know the truth.
All right.
And also, we were talking in the kitchen before this podcast about how you're in this moment, you're appreciating the weekends.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, because let's see, you haven't been like, oh man, it's the weekend time for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like since we moved to Florida or even before
No,
moving to
before
Florida?
that.
Yeah,
because
gotcha.
I was like that when I worked for somebody else to be like,
Sure.
oh, dude, it's the weekend. I can go do whatever I want, right? We'd go
Mm-hmm.
snowboarding or whatever. And then I started my company and it was just like, I didn't care if it was Saturday or Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or Thursday or whatever. I didn't even know what day it was half the time. I was just going. Once the plumbing company started to go and wasn't really needed all the time, then the days were all just kind of the same, right?
Yeah. Actually, I think I remember we would be in your house in Alaska, meeting for church, and you'd be like, dude, I don't know what day it is. Because your routines would be just so, they wouldn't be confined to the going to the place to do work and then leaving.
No.
Because your work could happen anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we moved down here, and I didn't really do anything for a while. It was just a kind of a free-for-all, but then I got bored. I think maybe it's better now because I'm living and dying by my calendar a little better.
Sure. So that...
I'm actually putting stuff on my calendar and thinking about how I spend my time and trying to use it wisely.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been thinking about is we have so many things to focus on. When you're building any kind of business, there's a million things to think about, and it's really hard to determine what is the thing I should do right now.
It's super hard.
And because there's always a risk that you're going to choose the thing that you shouldn't be focusing on, but you don't even really know that.
That's why coaching is so valuable.
Oh yeah,
because just for that one reason, they can somebody to look at the bigger picture. I was just thinking about this with my general manager. They haven't been doing a very good job, being a good leader for him, right? And just when I say that, I mean just looking at the bigger picture and going here's the things that we need to worry about. Here's the few things you should focus on in this short time frame.
Yeah.
Next steps. And then don't worry about this other stuff, right? Because it's hard because he's in the day-to-day, the thick of it.
Yeah.
And it's hard for him to see that big picture. But for me, I sit back and I see the big picture all the time, so it's much easier. Same thing with a coach when you're in your business and you don't have the luxury of not working in it, which a lot of people don't. Then you're in it so much that it's so hard to remove yourself from that and think big picture, top down perspective.
Yeah,
and that's where a coach can come in because he can look at. They have the experience of being where you're at, and then they can look at what you got going on and think about it a little more big picture, know what's coming up, and say, focus on these few things now.
Yeah, a coach is really an attention director. So it's direct your attention here.
Yeah, so the way I like to think about it, and I think I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again.
Dude, you've never said this before.
I like to think about it if, starting and growing your business is getting from point A to point B in a maze, right? There's tons of different directions and distractions and maybe even multiple ways you can go that'll get you to the end. The job of the coach is to look at the maze from the top, right? So he's looking down at the maze and he can see you in there and he can map out the path to get where you want to go.
Right.
And he can say, okay, your next 2 moves, you're going to turn right. You're going to travel for 30 feet, and then you're going to turn left.
Right.
And then we'll talk again.
Right.
And you don't have to remember every move to get to the end.
Right. You
don't have to remember every detail to get to the end. It's just the next couple moves, right? That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and it helps cut through, in our day and age, information is everywhere about everything.
Oh, yeah.
And you can get
wild.
You can get in the weeds off learning things that could be helpful for you at some point, but they're not. You don't need that right now.
Nope.
But it seems like a good idea because you can perceive that is going to be useful for me later.
Yep.
But then you're like spending your weekends reading these books or like watching these YouTube videos that actually aren't going to help you do the thing you need to do now.
Yeah.
And if someone were to just be like, hey man, don't even worry about that.
Yeah.
Like that's a later thing. Like right now you have this.
Yeah.
That'll come later.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know when to have that.
Yeah,
Incredibly valuable.
Then you get information overload is what I call it.
Yeah.
And you're like, you got so much going on in your head and you feel like you have to do all of it.
Yeah.
Because you're not super clear on what the next two things you have to do are. And then it's just, you end up spinning your wheels, doing stuff you shouldn't have done,
Yep.
going nowhere fast.
Yeah. And I think it's good to like know yourself to the point where you're approaching information overload. Like, so like I'll consume a lot of and read like business books, but then I also will consume not business books. Like whether it's like about like Christianity or whether it's just like a story. And I know when my brain is not like going to be receptive to anything businessy. And like, I just need a detox to give it a little break and like, let's just read something else and then derive some sort of value from this. And then we can go back into this.
So for me, what ends up happening is I spend all of my time and attention filling up my brain with new ideas and new things. And I forget to take a second to go look at what the crap is actually going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thinking about the next thing instead of the thing that you got going on right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I tend to like, cause I tend to be a little bit of a like, I have this idea. This is a cool thing we can do.
Yeah.
And
let's make this happen right now.
yeah. And so I need to like, it's cool to learn new things, but I'm way limited on the new stuff I learn.
Yeah.
I read a little bit of a book, and if it's really good, I just put it down for now, and I just let that mull over.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I get way too distracted. I turn into a giant mess.
Yeah.
Readers are leaders, but if you read a ton of information, you don't do anything about it, or none of it is like useful to you at the moment. What good is that doing?
Yeah, and I think it's easy to feel like that. Well, I don't have anything to do in this current, like who was I talking to about this? I was talking to my buddy yesterday, and it's like, yeah, he's like, sometimes I'll sit down and eat lunch and I'll watch Star Trek instead of watching Alex Ramosi.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know, isn't it funny how you're like, well, I have this vacant time. I should be filling my head with good ideas from people who are really good in business so that I'm ready to do it.
Yep.
And there's always this push to like, I must fill every waking moment with information. And I would say that I think there's seasons of life.
So I wouldn't watch Star Wars though.
I
would
said
go
Star
outside.
Trek? Well, I know.
Get some movement and some sunshine.
The point is like there are things that like filling your every time that you can spare, not focusing on your business with business related things isn't necessarily always the answer.
No.
I would say that sometimes there's a season for that. Like if you feel that your brain is just catching things very well, and you're like, dang, I think I am onto something here, then there might be more advantage to leaning into that and absorbing as much as you can. But it comes back to just awareness of yourself.
Yep.
And what's going to be useful to you now, and not forgetting that, man, maybe you should just be out like running service calls and making money instead of doing this other quote unquote high level stuff.
True. Comprende.
Yeah, comprende. What does that mean? That's a high
my
level
good word for the day.
That's a good word. That's we should do like a dictionary with Jared.
Oh, dude, that'd be super short. Hello.
Yeah. That's your A entry? That's not even A. Like, that's fine. So what are you talking about today?
I don't know. What are we talking about today?
Well, if you don't remember, we want to do a deep dive on Jared Williams.
Oh, yeah. Let's tell my story.
Yeah. Deeper than we've ever told it before, though. That's what you told me.
Way deeper. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, we can go way back in time.
That's where Costin's got to put some cool music. Whoa. I could do the music.
You could.
You want me to do it again?
Should we just do a whole beatbox episode?
Yeah. Oh, dude. Just like we're bike riding, you know? Just take some clips from that.
Terrible. Yeah, let's go way back. I mean, because there's a lot of things that, led to having a plumbing business that makes me millions of dollars that go way back. Let's go back to like my senior year of high school.
Okay, gotcha.
I barely made it there, first of all. So it's a testament to anybody who struggled in high school, is currently struggling in high school, or doesn't think they're smart enough, or doesn't think they have what it takes. I was worse off than you, I promise. I was a terrible student. I barely got like through high school, barely got my degree, right? No way I was going to college. Senior year, I already had a kid. And
like a boss,
like you should.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing.
Everybody should just have kids in high school and then get married when they're done, and life is way cooler.
We'll make sure to put that one on TikTok.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah,
that'd be a good
we can
one.
hear the opinions from the masses on that one.
Yeah, so I already had a kid. I met my wife it was not my senior year. Man, I had a kid when I was 17. So whatever the years before your senior year, I don't even know. Junior?
I got your back.
Thanks. So junior year, it was my girlfriend at the time, pregnant. And we had a kid. It was actually her, whatever's before junior, sophomore. It was her sophomore year. She actually finished high school a year early. She's way smarter. I finished high school on time, which was actually remarkable considering my past of high school. Because I went to ninth grade and I completely failed. I failed gym. Like that's how bad I was.
Did you just not put any effort into things?
Zero.
Yeah, gotcha. So were you sort of like, you didn't do well in school because you were like, I'm not doing nothing.
Dude, all I thought about was skateboarding. That was it.
And so you're just,
and music.
Actually, that's kind of funny because thinking about how you have a good ability to focus and get things done.
Yeah.
Your focus was probably just not on anything related to what you were doing at school.
No, it was
You're probably just like, oh,
skateboarding and
them play some music.
Skateboarding and music. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So I met my wife. She was probably my first like legitimate girlfriend. I ended up getting her pregnant, and her dad was a plumber. And so we finished high school. I got like the last 6 months of my senior year, I had most of my classwork done and I would get off pretty early. And so I went to work for a company called Western Mechanical.
And so, well, because you went to, like, did any of your other friends have jobs like you?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Nobody had jobs.
And so talk about just like maybe the evolution of like, okay, you got your girlfriend pregnant.
Yep.
And then what did your parents think about that? What did they push you to do anything or what?
No, my parents were pretty, like looking back on it now, I didn't really worry about what my parents were going to say, but they were just like, oh, yeah, okay.
They expected it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. My wife's dad, on the other hand, he was pissed.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
He didn't come home for a few days.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know him that well. I was kind of worried. But that ended up working out okay.
Yeah, in the long run.
Yeah, we finally like all met together, my parents, her parents, and he was like, Jared, I'm not going to kill you. But,
wow, that's a big step.
But you better marry my daughter.
Yeah, gotcha.
Which was, I intended to marry his daughter, but I think it's cool that he said that.
Sure.
Rather than being like, you're a piece of crap, I don't ever want to see you again.
Yeah,
right?
sure, yeah.
It was a good reaction. So if anybody here is listening and your daughter is pregnant
in high school
and he's a halfway decent dude, then, maybe it'll work out.
Yeah, maybe he'll be like you and he'll have a good business and make good money and provide for his family and have old kids when you're still young.
Yeah. The other part of the thing that he did, he told me, I am not buying your baby's diapers.
Sure.
And I said, okay. And so I worked at a bike shop for a while, made just enough money to buy diapers. And then like halfway through my senior year, I went to work for Western Mechanical. That's where my father-in-law, he's now my father-in-law, worked as a plumber pipe fitter out of the union. And I got a job as a yard bird. And it was to this day is the best job I ever had. It was so much fun. I think I didn't even realize it then, but like having to go there and like learn all the parts and learn how to communicate with these plumbers, pipe fitter, welder guys that were just so weird to me. Like I grew up in like a Christian home. My dad never cussed. To this day, if he listened to one of our podcast episodes and he heard you cuss.
Oh no.
I don't remember what he heard you say. But he goes, I asked, this is just the other day. It's so funny. I was like, he goes, I listened to one of your podcast episodes. I was like, yeah, what'd you think? He goes, I was not impressed with Joel. And I was like,
dang, my foul mouth. Jeez.
I was like, it can't be the big words because my dad uses big words.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
So
yeah, get me off of that one. Whew. I probably didn't even use any big words.
And I was like, what was it? He goes, well, I mean, his language. And I was like, he goes, it's just, it's maybe I'm old school, but it's not professional to me.
There's an explicit label on the podcast.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh,
you got to put it there just in case.
We're going to have to start being more explicit.
Oh, yeah. We better live up to the label.
Tell my dad, don't listen to this one.
Yeah, this one's for Jared's dad.
Yeah.
Beep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What if he heard the things that you say after the intro?
Ooh, dang.
Jeez.
Anyway, my dad is like pretty hardcore, never cuss, very nice person.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what I grew up around. Mm-hmm. Like all of our friends were that way for the most part. And so when I got around these dudes who were just rough and gruff, they were all so grumpy, but yet they were really nice. And they were all so mean, but yet they were really nice.
Sure.
And they're all so foul,
yep,
but yet really nice.
Yep.
Like deep down, they're just good dudes. Like most construction workers they're just cool dudes. But they're foul and they're grumpy and, they have a certain attitude.
Sure.
And the Western Mechanical, that shop I worked there again a lot, like later on in my career, and they're still that way to this day. It's super funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Same people or different people?
So there was a lot of the same people. There was a guy. So when I worked there in my senior year, I would show up on Saturdays and they would have me run down to Delta. It's like 150 miles away. And I was running parts. So during the week, I would get parts together. Then Saturday, I would make a parts run. There was a guy down there named Kevin Church. Grumpy, cuss like a sailor, but super cool dude. And he would give me cigarettes. And so I started smoking, right?
Classic.
And then and I was underage.
Sure.
And so I'd drive down there every Saturday, sit in his job trailer with him, listen to him curse like a sailor. We'd smoke cigarettes together. It was super funny. Anyway, he was there the next time I worked there. He was still there. My father-in-law was still there.
Yeah.
So it was like the same old story again.
Yeah, yeah. You should have
going back in time.
Yeah,
it hadn't changed at all. It was funny. So I started working there, doing that. I worked there. I think I ended up working there almost a year. So I graduated, kept working there for a little bit, and then I went to go get into the union. I didn't. So back then, the union, it's Local 375, plumbers and pipe fitters. They would get like 250 applicants every year, and they would take 15.
Oh, wow. Jeez,
so
very competitive.
Super competitive. And if you had family in the union, you had much better chances. Actually, let me go back a step. Graduated high school, then we got married.
Yeah, sure.
So at that time, we're married. We moved into our own apartment. Doing pretty good.
And then, I mean, why was this your favorite job? Like, why did you enjoy this job? Like, unless it was just that you worked with these crusty old dudes.
Yeah, it was the crusty old dudes, the newness of it. It was the first time like having to learn about plumbing parts and plumbing and POs and and there's construction sites and it was all new, right?
Yeah.
I liked learning it. It was the first time I liked learning.
Interesting.
I didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And so it was fun. And it was just cool because I would drive after I got out of high school and then I would go to work Monday. I'd wake up Monday morning, I'd go to the shop, I'd get a big old list of stuff. And this job that they had was like a 2-year job down in Delta. And so I would drive every day.
Oh, wow.
And so I'd spend an hour or two getting parts. I'd spend an hour or so driving, and then I'd spend an hour dropping off parts and then an hour back.
Yeah.
And that was my whole day.
Yeah.
And it was super fun.
Yeah, super simple. And
it was cool.
Yeah.
I would listen to the truck I drove, had AM, FM radio. I'd listen to talk radio on the way down.
Oh, yeah.
Until the radio stopped working and then
it's just silence.
Then just silence. Yeah. I think I had a little, I must have had like a Discman or something.
Probably did.
Because we didn't have MP3s then. We didn't have iPods.
No.
And I think I had a Discman and a little cassette adapter.
Oh yeah,
for the truck. Yeah. That's really funny. Funny to think about. Yeah, it was just a fun job. It was super fun. I would love to do that again. Maybe because it was so.
Hey, if you play your cards right, you could make it happen, Jared.
Maybe
They might have an opening.
maybe.
Or maybe if you play your cards really wrong, maybe that's the way.
I'm sure I could
it.
go back there and be like, I want to be your expediter, and they'd be like, cool,
They'd be like, sure, man.
hired.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.
Telling your wife, going back to Alaska, babe.
I'm going back to work at Western Mechanical for $10 an hour.
Yeah, I think it's going to work out great.
It's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be so happy though.
Don't worry, I got a 2 week on, 2 week off gig, so I'll be down here for 2 weeks. It'll be okay.
We'll make plenty of money. Don't worry
like-
about it. Anyway, I went and applied for the union. I didn't get in. I was like number 18. They took 15. And so my father-in-law went down to the hall and talked to the business owner.
Did you ask him to do that?
Not business manager. No.
Gotcha. Yeah,
He
you
said-
probably wouldn't ask him to do that, would you?
No, heck no.
Yeah.
And he said, what does he have to do to get in the union? And he was like, they didn't choose me because my high school grades were horrendous. Specifically my math grades. So they get you into the union, and the first thing you do is you go to school and you go through math.
Yeah.
And if you didn't do really good in math in high school, chances are you're not going to make it through math class in union school,
Right.
and you're going to end up dropping out.
Right.
So they don't necessarily, so they want to see that you like did okay in math, right? Which is funny because the math we used out in the field was not anything like the math that they taught us to use.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that you're good with math because we do lots of math on the podcast. Dude, you're a math master.
I'm terrible at math in my head, but I actually really enjoy math.
Put it on a spreadsheet and you're happy as a clam.
I love spreadsheets.
I know you do.
Don't get me started.
That's a good quote. I like
Yeah.
that. I love spreadsheets. Don't even get me
I'll
started.
put it on a t-shirt.
Jared
I'll
Williams.
give
yeah.
you one.
Yeah, okay. Really? I get to get one? Damn.
Yeah.
There's a little too many Bennies in this company.
Dude.
Better make me pay for it.
Yeah, don't get me started on that either. So where was I? So what I did is I went and took a math class. So I signed up for this trigonometry class.
Wait. Is that because your father-in-law figured out, they were like, if he does better with math?
Yep.
Like, is that, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I just had to prove to him that I could do math, that I was capable of doing math,
They
right?
should have listened to this podcast.
Yeah, I should have.
No, they should have.
Oh yeah, they should have.
Anyway, go on.
So in the meantime, so he gets this information that, hey, if he takes a math class and shows that he can do math, he'll probably get in. And then he also told him, hey, we're opening up this new program. It's what they called, I think they called it like BMR or something. It was like a pre-apprenticeship. So I signed up for the math class. I went and signed up for this pre-apprenticeship class. I got into that. It was a lower pay scale. It was a 2-year program. And basically, if you got through the 2-year program, then you automatically got into the regular program. So I thought,
yeah,
okay,
gotcha.
I'm in this. So as long as I make it through, I'm pretty much guaranteed to get into the normal, the apprenticeship program. If I get a math class, maybe I can get in like next year into the union. And I'll only have to do this pre-apprenticeship for 1 year.
Yeah.
So I did. I got into pre-apprenticeship. I signed up for a math class. We went through like a month of schooling, and then they put us to work.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
There's stuff that's got to be done.
Yeah. So I went to work on what was called Eielson Air Force Base for a contractor called American Mechanical. And I ended up spending a lot of time at American Mechanical. So I went there and I worked with this guy named Robert Platts, who I don't know if he's still alive. Turns out his sister was my aunt, and I had no idea, which is super funny because we were literally working with each other for like 2 months, and we're sitting on some buckets in a parking lot at break time, and I'm digging in my lunchbox, and dude, I remember it very, very vividly. Do you remember the little Coke cans?
Yeah.
That were
the
like
mini
half
ones?
size?
Yeah, but we're not talking about the thin ones. We're talking about the
They
fatter
were
ones.
short.
Yeah, they're just short.
Normal.
Yep.
Yep, just short.
Yep, I got you.
Yeah. So my wife would make my lunch every day, and I would always have a Coke in there. So I
I'm trying to imagine your wife putting a Coke in your lunch.
I know, isn't that weird?
Yeah. Christelle being like,
she would never do that now.
No. She'd be like, oh.
No. So I opened my lunchbox, an Igloo lunchbox, the lid like slides over, you know?
Yeah.
And I look in there and I can see the top of the Coke and the food is like all the way to the top of the Coke can. And I was like, dang, I got a big lunch today. I was excited. And I pulled that Coke can out and it's like this tall.
Yeah.
And it was same instance. I'm sitting there. I'm like, what the crap is this?
Did you not normally? You normally got full Coke cans.
Normally full.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, yeah.
And I'd never seen a short one ever in my entire life.
Oh, yeah, so you were just blown away.
And I was like, dang, there's so much food in there.
Am I dreaming right now?
Yeah, I got super excited, then pulled the Coke can out. And what is this thing?
Yeah.
Like, first of all, who buys this?
Yeah.
Who wants a half a Coke?
Christelle was just communicating you're getting a little tubby drinking those
Maybe.
Cokes.
Who knows? Anyway, we're sitting there, and I'm drinking my tiny little Coke, and he talks about his son, JD, and I'm like, JD, man, I grew up with a kid named JD. And he was like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, he used to like play at my aunt's house, and I would go over to my aunt's house, and he would always be there. And he was like, who's your aunt? And I was like, Kathy Innes. And he was like, that's my sister. And I was like, what? It was the weirdest experience. Yeah. I was like, how did I never, ever, ever see you? Well, it turns out he was in the plumbers and pipe fitters. He spent a lot of time up north.
Sure. Especially around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people who don't know, like, you can go pipeline pretty much every single winter. Yeah. And so he'd be up pipelining. I'd be over at his sister's house playing with his kid because his sister was watching his kid while he was up north pipelining.
Gotcha, yeah.
It was a funny moment.
Yeah. Small town.
Very small town. Anyway, I think he's dead now.
If anybody knows, just comment below.
He had a drinking problem. Super nice guy.
Yeah.
He was the first guy I ever worked with. I was an apprentice. He was my journeyman.
Sure, yeah.
He was super cool. Taught me a lot of stuff. How to wrap Teflon tape. It was cool. And then so we were out on Eielson all summer long on a Utilidor project. And then we went back into the shop in the wintertime to start prefabbing for the next Utilidor project the next summer. Let's see, how did that work? We did a Utilidor project, but then there was I actually didn't go back in the shop. I went over to the guy that I was working for, the guy that owns American Mechanical. Name is Dennis Michelle. American Mechanical they're a general contractor, and they did their own carpentry.
Okay.
They did their own like excavation, own dirt work, and then they did their mechanical work. So not all the mechanical, just the plumbing and the heating, right? And then they would sub out all the, sheet metal and electrical and whatever else had to be subbed out.
Right.
Otherwise, they did most things in-house. They decided to build some condos. I have no idea why. It's super funny. He teamed up with another guy in town, and they built, I think it was 20 units of these duplexes. And then there was a row in the middle of like 8 of them, all tied together. And I went over there and we started running water lines into all the foundations.
Yeah.
That's what I started doing. And then we ran water lines in, then we ran sewer lines in, and then they started framing the condos. We started plumbing them, and then wintertime hit. And we plumbed for a little bit, and then I went and applied for the union again.
Sure. Gotcha.
And at that point in time, I got in. And I got in because I went and signed up for this trigonometry class. And I was like, trigonometry can't be that hard,
Yeah, it's a cool word,
Yeah, I thought if I just sign up for like an algebra class, it's not that impressive.
Yeah. But if I do trigonometry.
If I do trig, that's even cooler.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't a very disciplined person at the time. So I never finished the whole class. I only finished one little section of it.
Did you know you didn't finish the whole class?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, you were aware.
Oh, yeah. And so I didn't submit the grade for the whole thing. I submitted the grade for the one portion of it that I did.
On purpose or on accident?
On purpose.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
And I lied to them. I told them that,
dang.
Hey, I got an A in this trigonometry class.
Yeah.
And that's why I got in.
Oh, my gosh.
And I felt bad about it ever since.
Did you ever call them and apologize?
I told them all, like, my my last year in the apprenticeship, I told everybody.
You're like, hey guys, just got to come clean.
Yeah.
What'd they say?
Nothing. They just laughed.
They're like, oh, Jared.
They didn't care at that point in time.
Yeah. You were already doing what you needed to do and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get into the unit at that time. So that means January 1st, I'm going to school. So you go to school for, the way we do it in Fairbanks, Alaska, is you go to school for 2 months and then you work the rest of the year. And then you go to school, like you work an entire year and then you go to school for the next 2 months.
I understand. Yeah.
And so on and so on and so on.
Like 12 months and then 2 months, and 12 months, 2 months.
Until the final schooling, you go to school for 2 to 3 months and then you turn out. You become a journeyman, right?
Gotcha.
Take all your exams, get your licensing, and then you're a journeyman.
Gotcha.
So I went to school and then went straight back to American Mechanical after school. I ended up working at American Mechanical my entire apprenticeship.
And because I remember you talking about even doing those Utilidors after you had like started your first and second company. So it's like you done a lot of Utilidors on Eielson.
I did that first year of Utilidors and then we did 7 more. So I went that first, when I got in as a pre-apprentice, we did Utilidors.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's actually really funny because we did that section of Utilidors, and then I did 5 years during my apprenticeship. We did Utilidors.
Yeah, so for 5 years?
Every single summer for 5 years.
Wow. Goodness.
And then I turned out, and I believe we did, it's really hard for me to remember, but it was really weird because we went back and we were redoing some of the Utilidors that I did that first year.
And you're like, wait, I've been here before.
Yeah. It was super weird. Like we were upsizing some piping and tying into things that I put in like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. It's like, this is super weird.
Hey, look, I wrote Jared was here, and then I drew an obscene image. Huh.
Yeah, it was super weird because back when I first started working in the Utilidors, like the Utilidors are a 30-year revolving project.
Yeah, yeah.
They replace them every 30 years. So there's one summer you do this section, the next summer you do the next section, and then after 30 years, constant. You're right back at the beginning doing that first section again. And so I remember talking with guys, and they were like, I put this in. Like old guys, they were like, I put this in back when I was an apprentice.
And you're like, dude.
And I was like, dang, that's crazy.
Did you draw that picture on there? Yeah, I drew that picture.
No, that never happened. Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird experience. But we did 7 years of Utilidors. And Utilidors are just like, I don't know if they have them everywhere, but they're just like concrete hallways underground. And in Fairbanks, they got steam, sewer, water, electrical, like communication, and condensate.
Yeah.
So you just go in, like we would run temporary steam, water, sewer lines. Then we would go rip out all the Utilidors. We'd clean them all up. And then we go put in new supports and then all new piping and then rip out the temporaries. It was I loved it. It was super fun.
What did you love about it?
It was just simple work.
Sure.
Almost kind of brainless.
Kind of like assembly line style.
It was outside.
Sure.
So you're outside in the sunshine or in the rain or whatever, just working away. So, and it was fun. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
That's funny. I didn't know you did that for 7 years. Like that was like your bread and butter.
Yeah. So we would prep in the winter. We would just prep we'd like prefab all the manholes, prefab all the anchors, everything we could, all the racks, all the supports. And then we go put it all in all summer and then get it all tested, turn it on, and then back into the shop and start prefabbing for the next year. It was fun. So I did that with American Mechanical, but then they lost. It was like a 7-year contract that they had, 7 or 8 years. And you would have to bid on it. And there'd be like, they would select like 4 contractors that were allowed to bid on Utilidors for the next 8 years. Wow. Right? And they lost it. So they lost it for 8 years. They couldn't bid on any of them.
Dang.
And that was like their bread and butter.
Sure, yeah. Oh, dang.
So they started bidding on building remodels, still on base, and not just building remodels, but new buildings as well. And the first building they got, I remember, I either went and did more Utilidors after I turned out, or I turned out and went straight to this job. I can't remember. But there was a building they bid. They called it the Striker Wash. So they had vehicles it was on the Army base. They had their striker brigade, whatever that is. It was bigger vehicles. And they had a bunch of buses too for some reason. And they needed a car wash for them. The car wash that they had wasn't big enough and robust enough to get these vehicles clean. So we built this giant indoor car wash with these, like it was huge. It was enormous.
Yeah.
And the sprayer nozzles were insane. And then you like drive through the sprayer nozzle stuff, and then you turn the corner and you went through these like huge blowers. It was wild.
Yeah. Sounds like a government project for sure.
It was, yeah. So I got on that project. I was there for like 2 months. Yeah, 2 or 3 months, and the foreman quit. And they were like, "Hey, Jared, do you think you can be foreman on this?" And I was like,
And you had turned out at this point?
"Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I was a journeyman."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never worked in a building before.
Sure, you've only done Utilidors up to this point.
So I'd done Utilidors, and I plumbed a lot of condos.
Yeah.
Because we
Yep,
plumbed
'cause
all
you got those condos
right?
that you did. So that's your record.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'd done some side jobs like
Sure.
plumbing houses and stuff.
Yeah.
But man, commercial building, I had no idea. I'd never seen a toilet carrier or a urinal carrier, or I didn't know what air handlers were. I didn't understand how they worked. I didn't know that was equipment that my company bought. I didn't know there was motors in there that could turn both ways. You could wire them wrong.
Yeah.
Like it was a disaster. It was embarrassing. I fumbled my way through it, learned a ton.
Sure.
A lot of the people were really cool, helped out a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure they just thought I was just a complete idiot.
Because you were just making all these mistakes.
Yeah. But I was like 24, 25.
Yeah, and you were just handed this like massive responsibility.
Yeah. I was young.
Yeah.
Super young.
Well, why did they give the opportunity to you?
Probably because they knew they could boss me around. Is my guess.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
Like looking back on it now, they just wanted people to show up to work and just do what they wanted them to do.
Right.
And they were the company did stuff a little bit differently, and so a lot of the guys would come in and they get pissed and then quit. It was a pretty normal thing to happen there, which ended up happening to me eventually.
Yeah.
Except I didn't get quit; I got fired.
Oh, jeez.
I didn't get fired, but we'll get into that. So I worked there for a long time. Ended up doing that project, and then we went and did a remodel on what was called the Cold Weather Research Center.
Wait. So you faked your way through that project though?
Faked our way through
By
it.
the end of it, you learned
went
a bunch
through
of stuff.
commissioning. They told me commissioning was happening, and I was like, cool. I'm like, what's commissioning?
Yeah.
Like,
did you even have a smartphone at that point to Google? Is that
no,
even
I didn't have a smartphone. I
Yeah.
still had a flip phone. I don't know if smartphones were out at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a long time ago. If
Maybe
you're
the OG
24.
iPhone was out. Maybe. I don't know. Got through that project, got it finished, and then I went straight over to this other project. There was a building called Cold Weather Research Center, where they would do cold weather research stuff. I don't even know what.
Magic.
Maybe they had all sorts of cool toys, like they went out snow machining and four wheeling.
Yeah, research.
Or they had a lab in there and all this stuff. I learned a ton more there.
Were you the foreman on that job too?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
And from the beginning for the first time.
Yeah, sure.
And so that was cool. I learned a lot there. And then we went over to these, the Army had built these duplexes. They built 55 duplexes, so 110 units.
Right.
And they built them on top of a bunch of PCBs. So drums full of nasty stuff, and I want to say alternators, but that is not the word. The thing that converts high currents to low currents, high voltage to low voltage. What is that?
Catalytic converter.
No, come on.
Dang. I don't know.
I'll think of it. I can't. I don't know why I'm
Superconductor.
No, it's not a
Tesla coil.
flux capacitor.
There we go.
No. Anyway, they buried all this crap, and they went, back in the day.
Yeah, like it was like garbage, and they were just burying their garbage.
And they went to go build these condos, and a bunch of the people started getting sick. Or sorry, duplexes. A bunch of the workers started getting sick.
Yeah, sure.
I think a couple of them ended up dying.
Jeez.
They ended up shutting the project down. This like cleanup company came in for like 5 years, spent 5 years just tunneling under these houses and pulling out drums of stuff.
God, that sounds miserable. Sounds like a miserable job.
Yeah, it was crazy. when we first got there, I got to see all the pictures of all the like tunneling and stuff they pulled out of there. It's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So when they were doing the project, they had to hurry up and get everybody out of there, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so they just like they'd put all these glycol lines underground, so like welded glycol lines, heating lines, and typically you would flush those and clean them out before you put the glycol in. Well, they just threw glycol in, turned it on, and split. Mm-hmm. So there was a bunch of crud in the pipes, and it was clogging up all the pumps and everything. So we went through that project and we replaced thousands of pumps. We had piles of Taco pumps.
Did you go bury them somewhere?
No.
Oh, no. Come on, that's the theme.
Like it was crazy, just piles of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was there for like I don't know, year and a half, and it was on that project. Man, so weird. On that project was where I got the idea to start my own plumbing business. And I was like, I'm going to start J-Rod's Plumbing. It's going to be so cool.
Mm-hmm. Why did you have that thought then?
I don't know.
Like, what was your like inclination?
I think so in Alaska, you have to go through an apprenticeship program, which is 5 years.
Right.
And then you have to work for 4 more years before you can apply for your mechanical administrator license.
Gotcha.
And I think on that project, I had hit that 4-year mark. And so I went and applied for my mechanical administrators at that point. Mm-hmm. And I was rolling around with another guy, and he was like, I want to start a business.
Sure.
And so we decided to start J&J Mechanical. Mm-hmm. From there, we went and, like, we started J&J, but we didn't quit our jobs. I went and did the plumbing and heating at a hangar at the airport that the boss of the company owned. Mm-hmm. He bought a hangar and we remodeled it and added on to it. It was pretty cool. And then for some reason, American got slow, and me and the other guy there, we went and worked for a company called Patrick Mechanical down in, we worked in Glitter Gulch. So
yep.
For the listeners.
Yeah, that's when you're in Healy.
Yeah, Glitter Gulch is like south of Healy, like what, 25 miles?
Yes, I don't even know if it's that far, but yeah.
It's what, 2 hours out of Fairbanks?
Yeah, it's like the Denali tourist trap, one could say. Big hotels. Like if you're going to go to Alaska.
It's like on the corner of the main highway. What is that highway? Is it the Alcan?
No. That's
Richardson?
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know, man.
I don't know. The highway that goes from Anchorage to Fairbanks.
Man, been way too long. The Parks.
The Parks Highway.
There we go.
That makes sense. The Parks.
Yeah.
And then there's the Denali Highway that tees off, and you can go into Denali.
Like into the woods.
Into the woods, like into the Denali National Preserve. Mm-hmm. Or you can take Denali Highway the other way and head towards like Glen Allen and Valdez and all that. They had gotten bought out. It was originally owned by Aramark, and they got bought out by Princess. Mm-hmm. And Princess went in and they built a new laundromat facility. And so I was down there. I was in charge of the laundromat facility, which was cool to do because there was a bunch of stuff that I'd never hooked up before. Sure. And then got moved over to the, what would you call that? The treatment center, the treatment plant, not center. Like where they treat your poo and your urine. Mm-hmm. That was cool too. We were putting together, I'd never done it before, like 18, 24-inch PVC glue together pipe. Yeah. Me and this other kid named Travis, he was smoking dope half the time. He was a super cool dude. Yeah. One of the coolest people I've ever worked with. We had this whole warehouse to ourselves. And we would go take measurements, and then we'd go back to this warehouse, and we would prefab these big pieces of PVC. Yeah. And we had these glue cans, PVC glue cans that were huge. They were like, I don't know, 18 inches tall and 12 inches wide. And the dauber, like a normal glue can is like the size of a coffee cup.
Yeah.
And then you got the little dauber, right?
Yep.
These daubers were like massive. They were like 12 inches long. It was like a big like paint roller almost.
Yeah.
And we would just be dipping the... the primer. I don't know if you've ever smelt PVC primer. Yeah. It's strong.
Yeah.
And then the glue. And we'd be in there just all day long, just
doing that thing.
Gluing away, breathing all the fumes. People would come in there and they'd be like, you guys got to open a door. And we're like,
what? No, man, this is chill, man. It's awesome in here.
Yeah. It was fun. Anyway, made a ton of money down there because we worked like 7/12s.
Yeah.
That gave us the first initial bit of money to really start J&J.
Sure.
So we actually I think,
and this was before, because you went to Healy again, right? Like later on. This isn't the time that you're in Healy when I actually knew you.
No, I don't. I think I only went down there once.
Because I remember you'd go down, and you were running a lot at this time. I just remember you'd go down to Healy, and maybe you'd be like, "Oh, I was in Healy, and I like it because I can go run after work."
Yeah, it was cool.
Okay, so that was around the same time frame.
Yeah, because I had bought my van because I bought an old Chevy Express van for $5,000. It had shelves in it already. It was a piece of junk. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any money to buy tools or figure out how to get jobs or any of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So the opportunity to go down there and work a ton was cool. We were working 12-hour days, but all the food was provided, but it was garbage. And so I brought my own food. I remember I'd cook bacon in my bathroom with the fan on, and I'd sit on the toilet and have my griddle on the floor.
Yeah,
and I'd cook bacon.
Yeah,
and probably my staple was canned chicken.
Yeah.
Beans and cheese, and I'd make burritos. I'd put them in the microwave.
Because at this point, was Chris still becoming more health conscious?
Oh yeah, way more.
Yeah,
and I was running a ton.
Yeah, sure. So you were running a ton. So you had a bunch of other ideas of why you wanted to eat well at this moment.
Yep. I was training for my second Susitna 100 at that point.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so down in Healy, and it was cool because I would, just go run up the mountains after work.
Yeah.
Even in the wintertime, because the wind blows so hard down there, it just blows all the snow off the mountain. So you can go run all year long.
Yeah.
It was super rad. And it was actually really fun going up in the mountains when it was windy.
Dude, I remember this because I remember that you were correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I remember you lightly considering we should just move to Healy.
Dude,
it's kind of awesome.
I would still to this day move to Healy if I could.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite spots.
Yeah.
Because the mountains are just fantastic.
Yeah, it's gorgeous down in that area.
Yeah. You're kind of in the middle of nowhere, but
you kind of if you want to move to Healy, you might as well have a bunch of money so you don't have to worry about anything. Just do what you want. Because there's nothing you can do down there. Yeah. Unless you're a teacher or something.
Yeah. So I'd go run up in the mountains every night. Sometimes the wind would blow so hard that you'd be on the ground on your belly, or you're going to get blown over, and the wind would die down. So I'd pop up and run as fast as I could, and then the wind would pick back up again. So you'd have to pop back on your belly
and just wait.
Super cool.
Huh.
It was also cool doing that in the winter because nobody else was there.
Yeah, sure.
There wasn't a soul, and it was dark, and I had my headlamp. Mm-hmm. And when in the wintertime, all the sheep, they go up the mountains because there's too much snow down on the, down in the valleys. They can't get around. Mm-hmm. And so there's just hundreds of sheep living up there. Mm-hmm. And so when you go up there and you're got your headlamp on and you shine you're getting close to the top where they hang out, you can shine your light and see all their eyeballs. And then you get closer and you see them scurry away.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was pretty cool. It was fun. And then we stopped working 7/12s, started working 6/12s, and I would come home on Sundays and I would do long runs with my father-in-law.
Yeah, gotcha.
And it was cool because running up in them mountains got me in good shape.
Yeah, so then you come back and start smoking your father-in-law, and I'm sure he loved that.
Yeah, he hated it.
Yeah, he did.
Hated it. Mm-hmm. And I remember purposely, I would run ahead of him, and my calves would hurt so bad, and I just told myself, I'm not stopping. I got to get way ahead of him.
Yeah.
And he would want to stop so bad, and I would pull that trick. I would run way ahead, and then I would stop and I get a big long break and wait for him to catch up.
Yeah.
And
you'd start looking like you were running.
As soon as he got where I could see where he was going to start walking, I'd start running again.
Oh gosh.
So he didn't get a break.
So you were actually very helpful for him because then he got probably the best training he ever got.
Yeah, he owes me any day.
Man, you should call him up and let him know.
I will.
Drop a link to this podcast.
Yeah.
You can listen to it.
Yeah. Anyway, a little off topic, but after that, we started my first company with my partner, J&J.
Yeah.
And it was fun at first to have a partner.
Sure.
Because if you needed help, you got somebody there.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. If you don't know what to do, maybe he knows what to do.
Yeah. So then you can figure it out.
Yeah. And it was probably real useful for me personally at the time. I probably wouldn't have made it on my own. Mm-hmm. I just wasn't mature enough.
What do you mean by that specifically?
So, he was 37, 38, and I was 20 something.
Oh, wow.
Or 30, I don't know, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
He was quite a bit older than I was. Mm-hmm. But immature enough to hang out with me. So,
Yeah.
I was slightly more mature than people my age, maybe because I had a kid so young, and then he was slightly immature for his age, so it was a good mix.
Yeah, so it was a match made in heaven.
It was a decent mix.
Yeah.
And so we just started doing side work.
How'd you get your side work?
Just word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like from family and friends or what?
Family and friends. Yeah, pretty much just word of mouth.
What was your guys' ambition? Like, why did you guys sit together and go, we should just start our own thing?
We wanted to have our own company and make lots of money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
Like work less. For me, it was work less, make more.
Yeah.
For him, it was, I don't know if he intended this, but it was work more, make more.
Yeah, he was hoping to work more, make more.
Yeah, I think he was hoping to work. I think he was hoping to make more.
Yeah.
But he was willing to just work his life away for it.
Yeah, and then use it whenever he could take a breath to use it or however that works out.
Yeah, which isn't very often.
Yeah.
And so we did side work together for probably, we were kind of doing side work on and off.
Yeah.
Up until then. So it was easy to say, hey, we're in business.
Yeah.
And then people would call us and we go just do more side work.
Yeah, gotcha.
We did that for probably 6 or 8 months. Mm-hmm. And then we were getting busy enough to where it was like, one of us needs to quit. And at that point in time, I was out at Eielson running a job for American Mechanical. We were doing a...
Because you're still in like the side work phase. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
One of you needs to quit your main jobs. Gotcha.
Yeah, one of us needs to quit our main jobs. And I was out at Eielson. We were building a fire station. It was a total mess, total disaster. I was super frustrated. And we were like, I can't work after work and on weekends and at work.
Yeah.
This much. It's killing us. Mm-hmm. Somebody's got to quit and start working like during the day for this business, right?
And with J&J, were you doing service work?
We were doing service, and then we got hooked up. The reason we were so busy, we got hooked up with a restoration contractor.
Gotcha.
So they would do, what was that? It was Big Street.
Yeah. I remember Big Street. Yep,
yeah.
I do.
They kind of went, tanked.
I'm thinking about Big Street, and I'm remembering like their logo and seeing them around.
They really exploded big on the scene, doing insurance work. And then I think the owner just got burnt out and sold everything and got a job down in the lower 48. He was kind of a cool dude.
I feel like, I know why I recognize them because I was working at Wrights. I remember Big Street going out to the village.
Yeah.
And I remember them coming through. Dude, I think I remember talking to that owner because I'd probably be calling him.
It was Brian something.
Yeah, I remember this. I think like you and I even talked about our connection at Big Street.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I know him. And like, oh, I know him. Like, oh, yeah, he comes through. He's a cool dude. He does work out in the village. And I just shipped a bunch of his stuff out there.
Yeah.
Huh. Funny. That's why I recognize that.
Yeah. So anyway, we got hooked up with them doing just basically something would flood or burn down. And we would go in and do the plumbing. You went out to Hughes on Wrights, but that was when you were J-Rods, I think. Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird thing too. Anyway, somebody's got to quit, and I could see the writing on the wall at that point in time that this partnership isn't going to work out because he wanted to work all the time. I did not.
Yeah,
he wanted to make millions and millions of dollars. I just wanted to make enough and not work all the time. Yeah, that was kind of my goal.
Yeah,
right? And so at that point in time, I just gave him my half of the business. I think I sold him my van. Because
your crappy van?
Yeah, he was still working out of his pickup truck. And I think he still has that van. That's the funny part.
He's milking that thing.
Yeah. I sold it to him for $4,000, $1,000 cheaper than I did. And he's put a lot of money into it since then.
I bet he has.
Yeah.
I bet he loves it and would never give it up.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't know if he still rolls it around. I don't know. Anyway, I just went back to work on the project that I was working on until that was over, and then they laid me off.
Gotcha.
Which I deserved it 100%.
Were you just being a poopy employee because you're just like, man, this sucks?
Dude, I was so frustrated at that job, the owner of the company, the superintendent I was working for, my boss. It was the most frustrating thing on the planet. I wanted to quit so incredibly bad, but I'd worked there for so long that I just held in there.
Hoping that things would change? Or
hoping we would just get the job over and we could move on to the next one.
Yeah, gotcha. And then the next job would be better because maybe different people would be doing different parts of it.
It wouldn't have been any better.
Sure.
So what ended up happening is they ended up running the government out of money. And so the government had to shut the job down.
Too bad they didn't do that right now. Government's got a lot of money.
Yeah,
apparently.
well, we hit them with so many change orders. Like the government had budgeted a certain amount for the project, and we ran them out of money. Like not even halfway through the project.
Dang.
It was wild. So we had to box everything up, leave the parts on site, and then they laid me off. And so I didn't have a job, so I called my father-in-law, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we need people over here." Mm-hmm. So I went to go work back at Western Mechanical.
Did you take a break in between those two jobs? Like, take some time off, or did you just like pivot right over?
I think I don't really know. I think I pivoted right over.
What was your perspective at this time about money?
About money?
Yeah. Like,
at that point in time, I was, we had savings in the bank. Mm-hmm. I believe my wife started working right around that same time.
Is that when she started teaching?
Something like
that.
Or
I don't remember what she did.
I don't really. It's all a big jumble in my head.
Because I just know that like there's moments of formation in your story, and some of them are just around how you view money, and how you view those things. I just want to know where you're at as far as what you think about money at this point.
My view on money at that point in time was like, I need to make more of it, but I don't quite know how.
Yeah, gotcha.
And we were starting to make more because my wife, I think at that time she was starting to teach. And so that was nice. She probably started at like 48,000 a year and then 58.
And summers off.
It was nice. And my kids at that time were going to school at the same time frame that she was going to school. So it worked out good. Yeah,
because I remember because I remember talking to you, and this was really early on in our acquaintance at this point. I remember talking about like Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
You guys would be like, we're doing the envelope thing or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
or I'd hear you recommend that to somebody like, oh, interesting.
Dude, we did the envelope system for years.
Yeah, and I just trying to remember,
we
this
were probably
is when you're
thinking about it,
system.
Thinking about where I was living, we were probably doing the envelope system at that point in time.
Yeah. Were you at the house next to your parents' house?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I remember like
we literally kept envelopes full of cash under our bed.
Dude, bad. And you're like, grocery envelope.
Yeah, dude. Yep. I mean, and it worked so well.
Yeah.
Like we would save so much money. We would freeze our credit cards in blocks of ice in the freezer so that if we had to use them,
you had to really use them.
We had to wait for them to thaw out. Yeah. It was a lot of effort. And that did us a lot of good because we graduated high school and started making money, and we didn't know how to manage it.
Sure, yeah, of course.
I had no clue how to manage money at that point in time. And the envelope system was like the only way we could go.
Yeah, super simple. You have this much money to spend, better figure it out.
So at that point in time, like my whole motto was probably live as simple and as cheap as you can so that you don't need money. Because money's hard to get.
Yeah, sure. Right? So the route to freedom is through limit your expenses.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I still think that way, but my idea of like making money is totally different.
Yeah. And as far as like freedom doesn't come through, like you have to be able to view making money through an abundance perspective and not be afraid to do the things to do it.
Yep.
And then if you can live simply, you're just better off.
Yep.
Like you have more security that way.
Yep.
And I mean, of course you can like ball out and do all that stuff too, like whatever you want to do. It's just less secure.
Yep. So at that time, I went back to work for Western Mechanical. I worked there for about a year. What did we do? We did a Fred Meyer remodel. That was a very fun job as well. Coming from this super lame, stressful job where you didn't have any help to going to a Fred Meyer remodel where it was like, you're all on your own. It was super fast paced.
Yeah.
It was like insanely fast paced.
Yeah.
It was the fastest paced job I've ever seen in my life. It was just like go, 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 go. Super fun.
Is that your preferred like working style?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Did the jobs frustrate you the most because they were like slow paced?
Yeah, jobs where you just can't get anything done drive me insane.
Yeah, because you're just kind of sitting there hanging out.
Your job is to get stuff done, and then if you just can't you can't do your job. It's super frustrating. Just want to go do some stuff.
Did you have like people that you were working with are totally down with just chilling and waiting for things to happen?
Some people, yeah. Some people don't care, but it drives me insane. I hate it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So then you're at Fred Meyer doing that remodel, and it's just like,
and it's go. Super fun. Ultimate freedom to just make stuff happen. It was cool. They ended up getting slow, so I quit. They were gonna lay off. You know what's funny? In the very beginning of this story, I was working with. It wasn't Robert Platts. It was Jimmy Platts. That's funny because I was working at Western and I started working with Robert Platts, his brother. And even at that Fred Meyer remodel, I worked with him a little bit. He's still alive.
Gotcha.
Super, super nice guy. I broke my knife on the job and he brought me a new knife the next day.
Oh, man.
Real nice guy. They were going to lay him off. And I was like, nah, don't lay him off. I quit.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because I knew what was coming. It was a lot of just doing nothing.
Yeah.
And they like,
yeah, sure. And you're like, I'm not trying to do nothing. And like,
no, I hate doing nothing. I can't stand it.
Yes, you do hate doing nothing.
So I quit, and that's the first time I started my company.
Yeah, by yourself.
I believe. I could be wrong on this.
And so like,
yes, by myself. That's correct.
and did you premeditate this? Meaning, did you like buy a van while you were doing that remodel and then knowing that you were going to start it? Or did you get laid off? Like, well, I should go buy a van and start doing this.
Got laid off, and I went and bought a van. That's the first time I bought my Sprinter van at that point in time.
Yeah.
No, I bought a different van. I bought another Chevy Express. Yeah.
Interesting.
Went down to Anchorage, spent $5,000 on another piece of crap Chevy Express. I went back into business for myself.
I'm trying to see if I can remember these vans, and I feel like I can.
I ended up selling that one to Ben Ford's cousin. I don't remember his name though. Anyway, bought another van, went back into business. First time is J-Rods. Yeah. So I was J-Rods Plumbing and Heating. Did it for a year. I was super, super busy.
Yeah. Doing what specifically?
Just I did new construction. I did plumbing service.
You pretty much did everything that came your way.
Everything that came my way. The only thing I shied away from was anything commercial because I didn't want to wait a gazillion days to get paid.
Yeah.
Like I was smart enough to know I can't wait that long to get paid.
Yeah. And you've done so much commercial work that you understand the cycles.
Yeah. And I didn't want to do it anymore either.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So lots of, remodels, lots of boiler swaps, lots of service work.
Yeah, gotcha. So that's really where you
couple new houses that I plumbed. Got involved with a remodel construction contractor named Straight Ahead Construction. Did a bunch of work for him. He was a cool dude actually to work for. Always paid his bills quick.
Nice.
And I did that for about a year. And after the year, it was like I had money in the bank. Only because I think I was charging like $120 an hour. And I made like $150,000. Like,
and you charge $120 an hour just across all different things. So no matter what you're doing, you're like, I'm $120 an hour.
Yep. No matter what I was doing.
Gotcha.
And so I remember putting out bids and I'd be so nervous.
Sure.
That is this too high?
Yeah.
Always worried it's too high. Never worried it's too low.
Yeah.
But I was low on all of them.
Yeah.
That's why I got all the work.
Yeah. You were super busy because you were cheap.
Exactly.
Across the board, not just with service, but with your...
It's cheap and I did good work.
Yeah.
It's like...
And you're probably easy to work for.
Yeah. Super easy to
work with.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And so after a year, I made like $150,000. I remember doing my taxes and I was able to put away like $20,000 after I paid my tax bill. But when I was working for somebody else, I was making, $120,000 a year plus full benefits.
Sure, yeah.
Plus, I got my weekends off. My brain could turn off. I didn't have to deal with customers on the weekends. It was like so.
Did you have two phones? Did you have like a work phone or a personal phone, or was it all just?
All just on my personal phone. And so it was like having a really stressful job and getting paid the same amount of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, this is not worth it. So I shut it down and I went back to work. I don't even remember where I went back to work.
Did you ever want to like hire anybody? Like, did you ever have the inclination?
I couldn't afford to.
Gotcha.
Like I had plenty of work to hire somebody, but I would look at the numbers and go, there's no way I can pay somebody to work.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And so I didn't, I was like, it just can't be done.
Yep.
So I went back to work for somebody else for like another 6 months, I think. And then I want to say I went back to work for Western for like another 6 months.
Mm-hmm. I think you went back and did more Utilidors, didn't you? You did something on Eielson.
I worked for a couple different contractors for a while. Anyway, ended up quitting all that, went back to work for myself. This time I was like, I'm going to do it better. I bought a Sprinter van, 4-wheel drive Sprinter van. Actually invested in some like good tools and equipment and things like that. And I decided I need to make more money.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna work more.
Yeah.
Because it was like the only.
That's kind of funny that you thought about that
to do.
Yeah, you already were super busy, and you're like, guess I'll be more busy.
Yeah.
What did your wife say? Was she ever like trying to push back on any of this? Like, where was she?
No.
She was just like, do whatever you want, Jared.
Yeah.
Well, because you've demonstrated the ability to make money regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah, for the most part.
So she trusted that whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, and she was making money at the time, so it wasn't like we didn't need to make that much money.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So I went back into business for myself. Again, did it for a year. This time I was 140 an hour. Got super busy. Did a ton of work.
Made hella cash.
I probably made 180,000 that year, or 200,000, or something like that. Right? It was decent money, but still, I could see like I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I can't grow from here. I can't hire somebody. I don't see how, like, and I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, because it was, paid more, but it was zero freedom. Zero freedom whatsoever. At that point in time, in between those two times, I turned my van into a, when was that? No, it was after this. I quit. I shut it down in April, converted my van to a camper van.
Yeah, because then you guys went on the road trip.
Went on a road trip.
Yeah. And I think we were actually friends then. Did we start a home church at that point?
I think when we got back
from the road trip. Yeah, because you probably just got back. I just got back from that Francis Chan thing.
Yep.
And then I was like, who wants to do home church? And everybody was like, we're good. And you're like, we'll do it. And I was like, cool, let's do it. Jared will do it.
Yeah. So we went on a couple-month road trip, and came back. Yeah, a couple-month road trip, came back, and I think I worked for somebody for a little bit, but I can't remember who, and then I just started my own business again.
I just remember you were telling me the story, and this might have been before or after, but I just remember you sitting on base and you looking, like eating lunch, looking around, being like, I don't want to work with these people.
That's after the fact.
Really?
Yeah, because we sold the house we were in, we bought the land next door, we built a new house.
Gotcha.
And I was working for myself the whole time, and just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, doing work and building my house. And then sitting in my new house, I remember it was like we moved in October. We built it pretty quick, moved in October. And I remember being like, man, I'm tired. And I had a buddy that called me. He was working back on Eielson. They'd gotten a bunch of money out there. He's like, dude, we need people bad. Can you come out here? He's like, it's 610s. I'll pay you general foreman scale, which is like $50 some an hour. We just need people. And I was like, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
So I go back to work for somebody. That job was super weird. Ended up I finished that job out and then went to work right next door for Back to Western Mechanical.
Dude, that's so
I worked
funny.
there for like 3 months, and then that job got slow and I quit again.
Yeah.
And then I went back into business for myself. And like 2 months in back into business for myself, I said, dude, I got to do something different. Like there's got to be a way that plumbing businesses operate that make money. Like there's got to be residential service companies. I could see the opportunity in residential service, and I don't know why I saw it. It was like there's got to be a way to run a business that makes sense, that actually makes money, because I would see these companies online that had like 20 trucks, 30 trucks, 40 trucks, 50 trucks.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, is it just that they're so big, but how did they get there?
Right, yeah,
Like,
they had to start somewhere.
How did they become that? Did it take them 30 years to get 30 trucks? And started doing research and started realizing there's just a way that people operate a business that makes money. And it makes total sense. Like once you see it, you're like, oh, you mean you just have to like run it in a way that makes money.
Right.
There's a system to it. It's not a secret. It's not some thing I invented. I just learned what everybody else was doing to be successful and did the same stuff. And it was good timing because I skipped a step. I went to work for Holiday Parks for a few months.
That's right. Yeah, that's the missing step.
COVID happened. It was the tail end of. It was kind of the tail end of COVID.
Yeah, because was it really tail end when you're still working for Holiday Parks?
COVID happened when I was working at Holiday Parks.
Yeah.
When I started my business back up, when I quit Holiday Parks and started my business back up, it was towards the tail end of COVID. So everybody had kind of shrunk and pulled back during COVID, right?
Sure.
And so when I popped into the marketplace, it was like prime for somebody to take over.
Yeah.
So it was really good timing. Didn't plan that. Didn't even think about it. I was just going for it. And then from there, we just kind of exploded very quickly. It was wild, right? Yeah. So I think I started in 2020, like August. August, September, I was still charging $140 an hour. October, I finally raised my rates to $259. I was nervous as all get out.
That's a big jump.
The first guy I went to go work for at $259, I gave him my price, and he was like, "Whoa, do all plumbers charge this much?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah, maybe, sure.
I have no idea. I just knew that I needed to charge more because I finally sat down and scribbled out my expenses and was like, no wonder I don't make any money. And at the end, he goes, "You know, this was like almost $200 an hour, right?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I do. I'm aware.
And he was like, "You kind of got me over a barrel here because you were the only one that would answer your phone, and you were the only one I could get out here." And I was like, "Sounds like I don't have you over a barrel."
Yeah.
Sounds like there's just not enough plumbers going around.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first times I had the realization of like, I'm the only one that answered my phone out of all the guys this guy called.
Sure, because you were probably under the assumption that everybody's going to answer their phone.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. So what I learned is like, if you just answer your phone and get out to somebody's house and offer them good service, they'll pay you good money to do it. Shortly thereafter, I went to a guy. It was the first time I got a water heater job at my new hourly rate, and it was, I want to say it was still under $2,000, but I was nervous, man. I thought, like, the water heater I bought was like $400.
Sure.
And I maybe had another $200 in parts.
Yeah.
And this thing, and it was $2,000, just under $2,000. And I was in and out. I was just down the road. He called me. I answered. I didn't have anything to do. And I was like, yeah. And I looked up his address on my phone. I was like, I'll be there in 5 minutes. He's like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Rolled down there.
That's pretty quick.
Rolled down there, looked at his water heater, gave him a bid. He said, go for it. And I was like, cool. I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab the new water heater and all the parts, and I'll get this thing changed out. We got the water heater, all the parts, got it changed out. The whole thing took me less than 2 hours. I went to go bill the guy, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, I'm going to make $1,300, and I've only been here for 2 hours.
Right.
And I gave the guy the bill. You know, I gave him a price before, and I was like, okay, time for payment. And he's like, are you sure you're making enough money on this? And I was like, what?
You're like, dang
what
it.
do you mean?
Dang it.
What do you, yeah, I'm making enough. I was like, yeah. Don't worry. I'm making enough money.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about this.
Yeah. He's like, okay, I just want to make sure you provided me with a lot of value today. Showed up super fast. You got this thing taken care of. The work looks super good. And I was like, wow, you can charge a lot for good work,
right,
and for good customer service, right? And so from there, it just kind of exploded. I started doing work. We were able to put away from October, November, December. I was able to save $80,000. It was the most money I'd ever had in my bank account in my entire life. And I was like, this is wild. Like, absolutely wild. If I was smart at that point in time, I would have taken that 80 grand, I would have sold my house, and I would have moved down to Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah.
And I would have started my business down here.
Yeah.
I would have moved to a better market if I was smart.
That's actually like hot tip for anybody who's in this position.
Yeah.
And they're in a very small insulated market that has a cap because it has, and man, I've talked to a lot of guys who are in these markets and they're usually like in like Montana or Utah or somewhere in the mountains and they're like small town or even like rural Dakotas, somewhere where there's just not a lot going on.
Yep.
You have such a better chance, and it depends on what you want in life, right?
It depends on what you want in life. Like if you just want to keep living there and have a little company that makes good money and you provide a good service and you want to do that for the rest of your life, go for it.
Yeah, and like maybe you'll probably get in that general manager seat, right? Like you'll probably get enough guys on the road to where you can be that position. You won't have to be plumbing yourself.
Right. Yeah.
You might be able to sell it, ? Maybe?
You probably, and you can make a decent living. I mean, you can do well. I mean, my plumbing business does very well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If you were still in Fairbanks right now, you could do whatever you want.
Yeah. But had I made that decision at that point in time to come down here, my business down here would likely be doing probably 3 times what my business up there does. Yeah. Right. So lesson learned. If you're going to start one, pick your market.
Yeah.
You got a choice at that point in time. So pick one, like do some research, find a good market that's underserved, that has cheap AdWord costs and go there. I would. Plus living here is way better than living in Alaska.
Oh yeah, dude, for reals.
Nothing wrong with Alaska. You know, sometimes I miss Alaska, certain portions of it, but
yeah, me too. Sometimes I miss like there's something about being in a small town and like the quietness of the flow of traffic, and then just to be able to go into like legit mountains that are pretty easy to do. Yeah, like I miss those things, but I definitely do not miss this time of year where it's like super cold, super dark. You really gotta like being uncomfortable if you want to go outside. Yeah, where today it's like, well, I guess I could put on. We were talking about it. I'll put on a coat and be warm. Yeah. Instead of like, I'll put on my coat and still be cold. Yeah. Yeah. Like
it's a weird feeling.
Yeah. But yeah, I know, to be like, wow, I'm actually sufficiently warm.
Yeah. What's wrong with this place?
Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point in time, I saved 80 grand. I had 2 vans and I had moved into a shop and I had hired your wife to answer my phones. One of the best decisions I've ever made. It's January. It's actually December 2020, I believe. And so I think just after Christmas, right before January 2021, I hired my first guy, Andrew. Super cool dude. Still works for us to this day. Super good employee. Does tons of revenue. Good attitude. One of my favorite people to this day. He came to work for us, first employee. So then I think somewhere around like March, we hired employee number 2. That was Nick. He still works for us. He came in just hot, ready to rock and roll. Yeah. And he just started like working. Right. Just work. Yeah. Built out a ton of revenue. It was exactly what we needed at the time. Like really got lucky. Like there were some things that I did right, but there was a lot of things that I got lucky on. Sure. And I think most people will have that same experience, that anytime they're successful, yes, they made all the right moves, but yes, they got a little bit lucky as well.
Yeah. And I think what happens is like that first time you can start to attribute things to luck. But what happens is like everybody's experience of success, they're going to have luck is going to interfere in different ways. Yeah. And then you can still look at it and be like, oh, dang, but this is how the thing goes. Yeah. And then you know how to sort of create your own luck the next time. Yep. Because you can look back and be like, oh, like this conversation, what we're talking about is you had 2 good producers who could work. Yep. And so now when you go and start another thing, you're like, I need some good producers right out the rip. Yeah. But I know how to get them. Yep. And I know what they want. And so that then you know how to have a good start. Right.
Yep. And so March we had 2 guys. I think by April we had 3 guys. We hired Morgan. He still works for us. He can fix anything. And then I believe we rolled like that for a couple months and then hired a guy named Eric. He doesn't work for us anymore. We ended up getting to like, I think by October 2021, we were 7 guys. And I brought on my general manager. So
Oh, was it that quick? Yeah.
I brought on guys 6 and 7 and my general manager all on the same day. It was it
was wild.
one of the unlucky things that I did.
Yeah.
One of the
foolish
decisions.
things, you know.
It was
hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight's 2020. It was super dumb. Brought those two guys like they were 50-year apprentices too, and it like everything was a mess.
Yeah.
It was a disaster, right? It was just like the wild, wild west. And we were getting tons of 1-star reviews. And I was like, we got to turn this thing around, right? So we spent the next the next 4 or 5 months just like figuring this thing out, like figuring out what a general manager does. I had no idea. Trying to figure out how to get these guys to not get 1-star reviews, or how to run the schedule in a way that doesn't piss everybody off, but still makes money. And ended up getting it pretty well figured out. That year we did 2.8 million. So 2021. And then 2022, we pretty much rolled with just 8 guys. We kind of scaled up to 10 and then back to 8.
Right.
Went through probably 4 or 5 duds that were they were okay, but
they just didn't cut it.
They didn't cut it. They would do, bad work, have lots of callbacks, or they couldn't, they couldn't physically do enough work.
Right.
And so we just end up having to let them go. But yeah, we ended 2022 with 8 guys. And then, 2023, end of 2022, we did $5 million in revenue. And really we spent most of 2022 just like optimizing. Yeah. Right. Just making the process good, making sure the marketing was good, heavily invested in our brand and in our social media, which is turning out to be one of the better things we've done. And then, 2023, we pretty much have stayed fairly steady. We'll do just over 5 million. Just hired guy number 9. We've hired 2 guy number 9s. One of them didn't work out for the same reason. Older guy couldn't quite get his brain around service titan and doing service work and all that stuff. So we just ended up letting him go. New guy we just got from another competitor, which is super nice. Seems like he's going to work out well.
Nice.
So
when did he start?
He's just now getting in a van by himself. So probably about a month ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep. So now we got 9 guys out rolling, which is cool. Setting us up for 2024. Hopefully we can just keep rocking and rolling through 2024. Yeah. That's kind of my story.
And then like in the middle of that, at some point you moved to Florida. And then
I moved to Florida like midway through 2022. So a little over a year ago.
What year are we? We're in 2023 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was because we sold our house in May 2022. I made really good money doing that.
Because you caught it at the top, like one of the higher housing market moments.
Dude, we built it at a cheap house, like when prices were low.
And this is before materials shot up for COVID.
It's before COVID.
And you decided to build a tiny house.
We built
not like tiny, like everybody's thinking like in a Connex, but like
it's 850 square feet.
Yeah, but it was like laid out. It was 3 bedrooms,
it was
2
nice.
baths.
Yeah, laid out well. Small, but laid out well.
Vaulted ceilings.
And it looked cool.
And it did. It was on a nice little chunk of land with like, you were running chickens on there and all this stuff. And
yeah, we built it for like 190, I believe. And then we sold it for 275 just a couple years later. I think we walked away with like 120,000.
Yeah.
Because we paid a chunk of it off.
Yeah.
It was cool. Yeah. It was it was a smart move.
Yeah. It's kind of that's like another one of those like lucky moments where you're just like, oh, I just ended up flipping this house. Like
I just ended up buying at the right time.
Yeah.
Or building at the right time and selling at the right time.
Yeah.
In reality, like the house that I sold to build my new house, it actually would have been better if I just stayed there.
Yeah, because that sucker, because you would have paid it down probably more, and then the trade-off would have just been.
I bought it for $225, and I think it was selling for like $340.
Yeah, but what's interesting is like you didn't have any idea of where you would be now when you sold that house to build that tiny home.
No.
Like you were not thinking, oh, I'm going to build a cool, like you were not like, oh, I'm going to have this $1 million profiting business that's going to allow me to live somewhere different.
Yeah, the thing, like my mindset at the time was still like, let's keep expenses as low as possible.
Yeah. And that's why like, let's get into a tiny house.
So I built such a tiny house.
Yeah.
I put like 40,000 of my own dollars into it. So I was only, math again, 150,000 into it. So I had a $150,000 loan on a 15-year term with a 2.4% interest rate.
Yeah.
My payment was like $800 a month or something like that. And it was going to be paid off in 15 years. I didn't have any vehicle debt.
Yep.
And my wife worked for $60,000 a year at that point in time. So, and that's another reason, like when I went to go start my business, I didn't have much cash at that point in time. And I had a credit card, but my wife was working.
Yeah.
Our bills were super low. We were living well within our means. And then the whole time while growing my business, all of our cash, I would pay myself, and then everything else went back into the business.
Yeah.
Back into the business. All the way up until probably October of 2022. We just, every last penny went back into the business, right? To get it to the point where it is now. And the whole time we just kept living within our means. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. Like, I talk to guys and they're out working in the van and they have a $3,000 car payment.
Yeah.
And like a $5,000 mortgage.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, that's a lot. Like, holy moly.
Yeah. Like, think of all the money
I still don't live like that.
Yeah. And that comes back to like, I mean, when you're making and incurring those large expenses, like what you're doing is you're just probably delaying the chance that you can actually live that way comfortably later.
So one thing I realized, like, I used to think that I wanted to make more money to have all this nice stuff, like boats and cool cars and trucks and things like that. What I realized is that when I go buy that stuff, if I pay for it in cash even, or if I have a payment on it, it sucks the freedom out. You lose freedom because you feel like you got to continue to like produce at this high level to pay for that stuff, right? And for me, the whole reason I started my business in the beginning was because not so much that I wanted to make more cash, it's that I just wanted more freedom.
Yeah.
And so when you like start living outside of your means and you start fluffing your lifestyle, like if you go make more money and then you just live like you're making more money, you're in the same boat.
Yeah.
It's no different.
And it's really easy to do.
It's
like,
so easy
like
to
it's
do.
really easy to slowly graduate your tolerance for living.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're always pushing up against the edge of what you're making.
Yeah. So like I bought a new truck at one point in time.
Yep.
And I remember I would have the payment was like $1,400 a month. I hated it.
Yeah.
It was driving me insane. It's like, I'm paying this money. This thing doesn't do me any good.
Yeah. It just hangs out there.
Yeah. It looks cool and it's nice to drive around, but I hate having a payment on it. So I sold it back to the dealership. What's funny is that was good timing too, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny. Cause you sold it back when COVID was happening or something was going on.
There were no vehicles.
Yeah. And so they were like, we'll pay anything. And you're like, hey,
I sold it for exactly what I bought it for.
Yeah. That's never happens.
Yeah. I put like 30,000 miles on it and then sold it back for what I bought it for.
It's a good deal.
It was a good deal.
Yeah, that's funny.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
It was another one of those lucky timing things. But yeah. I think like even like what we continue to do this to this day wouldn't be possible if I didn't live within my means. Like we never would have started. Sure. I never would have hired you. We never would have started podcasting. We never would have. Like I wouldn't have had the money to invest in all this stuff, in the cameras and the microphones, and the lighting, and the editing and all that stuff. We wouldn't have started, a social media company and learned how all that stuff works. We wouldn't have started a coaching program for plumbers. It just wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have had the capital.
Right.
So I think it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. You are, at the end of the day, you yourself are going to be the most limiting factor on your business.
Yeah.
And the choices that you make are going to directly impact your business.
Yeah.
And that's the risk you play. Like when you start a business, you're risking that you're going to be able to do this thing.
It's like a catch-22 because you start your business to make more money, to have more freedom, and probably to like live a little bit more comfortably, right? And then you build a business and you're like, it makes good money, but you start to understand like this business could also suck a lot of money, right? Very quickly. Like the difference between my plumbing business being profitable and putting money in the bank versus my plumbing business not being profitable and taking money from the bank, it's a thin line.
Yep.
Like the 20% margins or 18% margins or whatever you're at, that's a thin line.
It can evaporate so fast because
it can evaporate very quickly.
Because you're dealing with a lot of risk just
yeah,
in the nature of the business.
So think about it. We do $5 million in revenue in my business. It costs us $4 million to do that.
Right.
So if something goes wrong, we're still spending the $4 million regardless.
Yep. Yeah,
that's a lot of money that we have to be responsible for, right? And then, so not only like, is it a thin line between making a lot and sucking a lot? You start looking at your business and you go, there's a lot of people that work in this. Like, I'm responsible for their livelihoods. If I screw this up, I don't just affect myself. I affect all of them. Every single one. Families, kids, moms, wives, they're all affected. So to go buy fancy new cars now is like,
you're actually risking everybody. Everybody is now, you're putting everybody at risk because you're choosing to live this life that you're not quite ready for. Like you don't have enough cushion in your business to actually do it yet.
Yeah, it's funny. You get a whole new perspective on money.
Yeah.
It's like you hear Grant Cardone like, hey, like 10 million's the new million or
dude, totally.
Or I like the difference between I was so stoked when I had 80 grand in the bank. It was unbelievable.
That money could last forever.
I used to think I could retire off $1 million.
Yeah, when you're like 53 or whatever it is, 63. Like that'll last.
Or $2 million.
Yeah.
Even. It's like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's not like it's getting any better, right? Like,
no, it's not.
And I mean, like, the cool thing is, like, if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you are a plumber, maybe you have your own business. Is that's one of the, I would say, rare opportunities that you have a business that you can scale to the point that you could sell or hold on to, whichever way you want to play it, that you could actually have a retirement for yourself. More viable than like just working and stacking away in your 401k.
Yeah, I mean, you have so many options at that point. You know, you can build a business that makes you a good living. Like a plumbing business that makes you a few $100,000 a year. You could run that with 3 or 4 guys, and it would be fairly easy to run, right?
Yeah.
And you could run that for 20, 30 years and make a good living and probably put away for retirement while you're doing it. And then at that point, you could probably turn around and sell that business for maybe $1 million, depending on the market, right? And then retire with $1 million in the bank and a retirement plan giving you money.
Yep, you'd be making enough money to be able to start other investments.
Yeah.
Like you could do some real estate, whatever makes sense for the current context, to then have more income so that when you actually retire, you're not like, crap, well, I actually have to go get a crappy job right now.
Yeah, and that's super simple.
Yeah.
If you grow a business to, 5 or 10 million, you could hold on to that. It would make you good money. You could do the same thing. When you go to sell it, it'll make you way more money. You can always, there's people out there that they'll build a business and they'll sell it. And so they'll get the few $1 million influx and then they'll take a little bit of that and they'll go buy another business and build that one and then sell it. And they just constantly are trading up businesses, right? At some point in time, they might buy 2 of them.
Right.
And then sell the 2 together and get a higher multiple. And so you're like, if you're a plumber, you're just a few years away from completely changing the trajectory of your whole life.
Yeah.
If you're sitting on a business in a market that has room for a plumbing business, which most of them do. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can't like understate that opportunity enough because I think
it's huge.
A lot of plumbers don't recognize that opportunity. Especially, I mean, we talk to a lot of guys.
Far away,
yeah, it does because the numbers are fake. Like millions of dollars or this or that or like it's all not real.
Yeah, if you're running your business properly, then you can make $1 million. Like you can do $1 million a year in business with you and another guy.
Yeah.
And you can pay yourself, you can pay your guy, and you can probably make an extra $100,000 to $200,000, right? If you get 3 more guys out in the field, you can do $1 million. Get 3 guys out in the field, you can pull out of the truck, and you can do 1.5 to 2 million a year with just 3 guys out in the field. You get 4 guys out in the field, it's like guaranteed $2 million. That business could pay you $300,000 to $400,000 a year. Plus your normal paycheck.
And it wouldn't be crazy, like, because guys always run through the horror stories of like, well, I don't want all the complexity and like the people issues. And it's like, you got to manage 4 dudes.
4 dudes out in the field and 1 lady answering your phones.
Yeah.
That's literally all you got to do. That's easier than getting out in a truck and working all day.
Yeah.
Much easier.
Yes. Especially if you like take some time, have some systems, make some, like if you run the business correctly, it just becomes this thing where there are so many win-win-wins that you're just managing
a system.
Yeah, you're just managing a system, exactly.
Yeah. There's just a way of doing stuff at your business. Everybody knows the way of doing stuff. The way of doing stuff is a profitable way of doing stuff. And your business can produce lots of cash. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah, cool story, dude.
Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah, dude, rad.
Yeah, if anybody listening needs help with their plumbing business, grab our free plumbing business playbook down in the description if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, you're going to have to go to YouTube and go to a description on any of our videos and click on the playbook, get the playbook, tons of information on how to do what we just talked about in this podcast. If you own a plumbing business, it'll help you out a lot. And it's free. So all we need is your email. We'll send it to your email. Check your spam and your junk. It'll be there.
Cool, man. Thanks, dude.
Cool, man. Later.
See ya.